Welcome on into the Browns Network. I'm your host, G. Bush. I'm with John Kosko, as he always is in the building with me on the Browns preview show here on the Barbershop Network. What's going on, my man, John?
Not a whole lot. Just excited for another week of football. It was good to have preseason action in here and getting to see the Browns and all of the AFC North and the rest of the NFL play this weekend.
We got a lot to go over, a lot to get to. We're not going to play with you. You know how we get it. We go faster in a hurry. But before we do get to the football and stuff, shout out to you guys at Pro Football Focus, man. You guys are holding it down, man. You got some good news. What's going on with that Pro Football Focus?
Well, we signed our 100th FBS team just recently, and we got some mugs to commemorate that. Guys at the whole team, Neil Hornsby, who's the founder of the company, and Chris Collinsworth, who's the majority owner now, and the service team, the sales team, and all the data collection team, just doing a lot of good work in college and NFL to be able to secure that and continue building. And it's pretty exciting stuff.
You guys have become an industry titan in terms of this is the first on the market in terms of being able to give grades. You've made grades and nerd football stuff accessible to the masses. So shout out to you guys and the work you do over Pro Football Focus and continue grinding, man. Appreciate y'all. Browns versus Jaguars. We finally got an opportunity to get out here, see our first look at the 2021 Cleveland Browns. And I think the Cleveland Browns really showed that they're just not a flash in the pan. I was really excited about their discipline. I was really excited about the execution for the second and third teamers. One of the things that I saw, what I really thought was really great, was the fact that some of the players are on the sidelines, and there was a cut of Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham going over plays in different scenarios in the scripting with Kevin Stefanski. And I just thought that was a really beautiful thing, because how many times have we seen guys on the sideline drinking Kool-Aid, guys on the side just doing their own thing, laughing and playing around? But I thought this was a business trip, and I think the Browns played very well. But how do you think that they looked in the game plan and some of the backups you got an opportunity to see?
Yeah, I mean, in general, you'd like to see what you just talked about with OBJ and Landry on the sidelines, not being checked out, but actually being involved with the game and just being active in terms of what you're seeing out there. They're really locked in on. They understand the situation they have in this NFL season, that the Browns are legitimate Super Bowl contenders if everything goes well. I think as a whole, they executed well on offense. Early on, they couldn't punch it in, but then they were able to do that in the second half. And the defense just played, lockdown football, and you saw some really good performances on that end. And unfortunately, they let up a touchdown in the last minute. But other than that, really, it was a really good performance, and just in terms of execution and this being a really clean game from them.
Yeah, I really thought that the defense. I was excited to see Joe Woods out there bringing a little pressure. I was really excited to see him get home on Trevor Lawrence, and I thought our young guys played really well. I thought Newsome, even though he gave up a sort of a deep ball, I like the fact that he was in position. He got his head around a little late. That's just a good play. You congratulate the offense on that. I thought JOK obviously to me was the guy to watch. I thought he showed his versatility. I thought he did a good job on the blitz game. I thought he was fast. I thought he had a lot of range, and all those things were advertised. And I wanted to see would he be able to tackle guys and do that out there. I thought JLK showed us the full package. What were your thoughts on some of the young guys and guys that stood out to you?
Yeah, JOK really stood out when you're watching it from a broadcast standpoint. He was a guy that to me stood out in the game and really showed me something. I think from a draft aspect and what I was looking at him coming out of college, he wasn't very disciplined with his eyes. You saw the athleticism, the tenacity, and the aggressiveness he plays with. And you saw that in this game, and I think that translated to making some plays in this game and just being in really good situations. He obviously defeated a couple of blocks, made that tackle for loss on the screen game, had a couple of run fits that I thought were really good as well. He did get beat and blocked on a screenplay that resulted in a first down earlier in the game. But I think from what I was looking for and what I wanted to see from him, he was really pretty consistent in terms of an all-around player, and I think he's only going to continue to develop in that regard. I think Richard LeCounte, he's a guy, safety is drafted in the 6th round. He had the highest grade in the defense in 90.8. Really good performance by him. He was in the right positions in the secondary and coverage. So that was encouraging to see from from what they were able to do. So I think, those are two kind of standout performances that I saw. One in, when you have to watch it all 22, you kind of really get a feel for what LeCount was doing, and then overall both all 22 and broadcast, JOK did a really good job.
On the offensive side of the football, I thought Demetric Felton looked decent. I thought he was able to catch the football. He doesn't look like, he's not Odell Beckham or Jarvis Landry as far as being comfortable catching the ball, but being a rookie or being a running back splitting time, I thought he did okay. I would be anxious to see your opinion on who messed up on the goal line, where he looks like he had him a little bit. I think he was running a shallow cross, and he kind of sat down. And I think the quarterback led him a little bit there on fourth down when they turned the ball over. I don't know if he was supposed to keep running on that, or was he supposed to sit down, or who missed the missed ticket or the missed item on that situation. But I thought he looked pretty good. I thought Dearness Johnson ran hard. And in general, if you look at the Cleveland Browns, I really think some of the offensive line didn't look very bad. I thought they did a good job of that. Who'd you see on the offensive side of the ball that kind of, besides Donovan Peoples-Jones making one-hand catches, but you know how that goes. Who'd you see on the offensive side of the football?
Yeah, so I think Davion Davis, backup wide receiver, showed really well. Obviously, had a touchdown at the back of the end zone on a fade ball. Kind of more of a jump ball in that situation, but he did a really good job of tracking that and bringing that in. And then Kyle Lauletta had a really solid game. He was the second highest graded quarterback in preseason for week one at a 92.3, his pass grade of a 91.4. I mean it's preseason, right? But that's one of the reasons why the Browns won the game, is because he was playing efficient football at that quarterback position. So those two guys really kind of stood out to me from an offensive perspective. And the offensive line did a really solid job, I thought, from a pass protection standpoint. Michael Dunn was really solid there. Drew Forbes, which is a guy that you've been developing in the building for a while, and it's good to see him play well at that respect. He had an 83.6 pass pro grade. James Hudson, the rookie that they drafted this year in the third or fourth round, he didn't play very well. I think he had a 44.8 grade. He needs to do better there. Was beat a handful of times in pass protection, but again, he's a guy that's newly converted from defensive line to offensive tackle. So he's got some learning to do, but he does have that athleticism, and he does move really well. So I think we saw his movement skills. He just needs to work on that technique that he has.
Moving over to the other side of the ball, Jacksonville. When you look at Trevor Lawrence, he made some throws. I thought he threw a little bit of a jump ball there that Newsome got beat on. I think when he had time, he looked pretty good. Getting the ball out to some of those deep outs and comebacks he was throwing. In terms of his pocket presence in the pocket, I think he held on to the ball a couple of times a little too long, waiting for guys to come open. What do you think about Trevor Lawrence and what you saw him against the Browns 2s and 3s?
I mean, it wasn't a great performance. He had the one throw that beat Greg Newsome to Marvin Jones, and really, other than that, the first play of the game, he fumbled the ball on that sack. He didn't have good ball security. But then he converted a third down a little bit later. But then he missed a third down throw, to stop that drive. So I'd say it was just kind of an inconsistent performance, in the fact that he needed to hang onto the ball. He can't be taking those unnecessary sacks, and if you are, you can't fumble it. So I think it was only 9 snaps, or whatever it was, maybe 15 snaps. It's just not a great performance. I think he had 9 attempts is what it was, and you want to see more from the rookie, and I think you'll in this week 2, if you go watch the Jaguars game, you're going to see probably a full half of play from him.
Well, we're going to get right to it. If you didn't get a chance to watch the game, if you missed the game, if you were under a rock, the barbershop here at the Browns Preview got you covered. Let's get into the top 10 plays from the Browns and Jaguars preseason game. Keep it locked right here on the Browns Preview Show.
Prescott on the outside. And Keenum is deep in the pocket, under a bit of pressure, turns and dumps it out. He's got Johnson, who's got a first down, puts his shoulder. And Ames takes the snap, steps up into the pocket, shuffles now, he's going to turn and fire a ball downfield. He's got a man, it's caught by Brian Allen.
Inspiration and the optimism is just ridiculous.
There's the handoff on fourth down, and James Robinson turns back into the defense, and he will be very... Lawrence under center, first time tonight, play action, deep in the pocket, shuffles, and is going to get sacked. There's the snap, time in the pocket, and he is going to lose the ball as he's sacked on his first play. Now they're back up. Here they come. Minshew under pressure, is hit and sacked. Down he goes. Takes the snap, pressure coming. Keenum turns and throws with a man in his face, and he's got a receiver. Three. And there's the pass down the field, and it is intercepted. And this one is coming back, and it is fumbled. Back on their 8-yard line. Atlanta turns and slings, and it is caught for a touchdown. His second of the night. He fired that one in. I mean, that was sent with authority to Ryan. Takes the snap. Under a little pressure with time now. Launches one for the end zone, and this one is caught. And that's a touchdown.
All right. Now you got a little taste of the Cleveland Browns in the top 10 plays. Let's get to, some of the other teams around the AFC North. We had an opportunity to see all 4 teams in the AFC North. Take a look at the first game, the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the world champs, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. They played that game down in Tampa Bay. And, I thought in general, I thought the Bengals played okay. It's just one of those things where you don't know if Tampa Bay cared or not. I didn't think the backups played too terribly awful for the Bengals. It just goes to show you the Bengals have skilled guys. They got skilled guys that they can do some stuff with. So it's not about whether Cincinnati is don't have talent. It's just up front, and can they stop people and can they keep the quarterback clean? Your thoughts on what you saw against the Buccaneers with the Bengals?
Yeah, pretty much what you saw. The starters, mainly played a series. Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. They're wide receivers. Those guys are talented. We know what they can bring to the table. Obviously, Jamar Chase is a rookie, but I think he was a fifth overall pick for a reason. They got him the ball, and he looks good in his routes, and even when he wasn't getting the ball. The problem is their offensive line. Jonah Williams, I think, is going to be fine at left tackle for them. But you've got Riley Reif over at right tackle, who is probably good enough there, but interior is where the issue is. Billy Price is their starting center. His grade in this game was a 30.9. He had 0.0 pass pro grade.
How's that possible?
It's hard to fathom how that's possible. But then Quentin Spain, who on 3 pass protection snaps was a 0.0 as well. So they really this team can take them far with the skill talent that they have, and if Joe Burrow is healthy and the talent that he has. But this offensive line has got to improve, because that interior offensive line for them is bad. They struggled in this game, and they need to improve. And I think they're going to be a contender in terms of getting to the playoffs, but this offensive line is going to hold them back this year.
We'll take a little bit of an more in-depth look at the Bengals as we do a deep dive in the AFC North later on in the show. Going to the second game we'll get to, we had the game in Philly, right? It's the game of Pennsylvania. You got the Eagles versus the Steelers. You got some young guys out there playing. When you look at the Steelers, they're looking to find guys opposite T.J. Watt. Bud Dupree is no longer there. Do you think this year, especially, do you think that the Steelers will go back a little more of that ground and pound that we've seen? The Steelers, if you look at the stats and look at the numbers, the Steelers over the last 5 to 6 years have thrown the ball more than anybody, just about. And that used to not be the case here in the AFC North. What do you think? How did they look against Philadelphia with the wide nine and everything? How did they look, and do you think they'll transition into running the ball a little more?
Yeah, they're definitely going to want to run the ball a little bit more. I think they made a purpose to pick a running back in the first round so that they can do that and have a guy that they trust to run the ball, even though really when it comes to running the ball, you need a good offensive line. And so what their issue is up front, and you look at their starters in this game, they all, only one guy played well, and that was Trey Turner. Everybody else was, in the 30s and 20s in terms of pass protection grade, all bad across the board. Okafor was not good in this game. Joe Hagg over at right tackle was not good in this game. So it's just across the board. These guys need to be better. And you're talking about a team that was the bottom 3 in run blocking grades last year. So adding a running back isn't going to do that much if those guys can't make lanes for Najee Harris. We know what the skill talent that they have is in Chase Claypool, Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson. Those guys are studs. But Ben Roethlisberger has got to be able to get him the ball. He's a guy that last year showed that he changed his game in terms of throwing the ball quicker. And he was averaging about 2.3, 2.4 seconds in the pocket. And he's a guy that normally throughout his career has held onto the ball, let guys bounce off of him as he's just been this statue of a man back there.
A pinball machine.
Right, exactly. And it worked for him because he was much more mobile, more athletic and stuff like that. Now he's older and up in age. His legs aren't what they used to be. So that style of play doesn't work for him. So he's really got to improve this year. I think if he doesn't improve, because that was the detriment for their team last year was his play. Mm-hmm. Mason Rudolph kind of looks all right. I think he looks really solid for them as that backup position at that quarterback spot. He and Dwayne Haskins are battling out for the number 2 spot right now, but they actually look pretty solid. Mason Rudolph in 2 preseason games has been good and grading in the 80s. And then even against the Browns last year, if you remember in Week 17, mm-hmm. he actually looked good. He actually looked competent. It looked like an offense that was moving the ball better than what Ben Roethlisberger was able to do. So I think from an offensive perspective, this team is going to definitely go back to that run game. They're going to try to at least, but and this defense. The Steelers defense is always going to be really good. We know what type of defense they bring to the table. So it's a matter of being able to keep their offense in the game to allow them to run the ball because that's what they want to do and not to have Ben Roethlisberger be chucking it around all over the place.
Man, we'll get into that. I want to touch down back on that Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins battle. I thought Dwayne Haskins didn't even look bad the other day. It's just about, those two guys who's going to be taking the mantle. And then we'll even ask, do they draft a quarterback if Big Ben falls off the wagon? We'll get back to that later on the show. Let's get to the game I thought was very interesting. I actually watched a decent amount of this only because of the train wreck. The New Orleans Saints is in Baltimore, and I'm watching this game with the Saints in Baltimore. And I'm watching the quarterback battle over there with the Saints. Drew Brees has been there for so many years, man. And it's kind of, I kind of feel bad for him, but I don't because the Browns have gone through it so many years. It's the fact that you had the luxury of having Drew Brees at all times. And now you got 2 guys, and one of them in the former number 1 overall pick, Jameis Winston, who are not the prototypical guy that you need to have. And you got a guy over there like Michael Thomas who's just sitting there wasting. Note to yourself, please do not draft him. He's not a first-round draft in a fantasy game. I'm just going to keep that real.
Yeah, so by the way, I drafted Michael Thomas in the 5th round of my draft, which I think
there you go.
That's a good value, right? So
5th round.
I wouldn't be taking him any higher, but he fell to that, and I was like, hey, why not?
He's available.
Yeah, from a New Orleans State standpoint, that quarterback battle is interesting to say the least. I think, the interception that Taysom Hill had was a miscommunication with his wide receiver. He started breaking out. It was a curl route, 12-yard curl, and usually you're supposed to come back to the quarterback. Taysom Hill threw that, but the wide receiver broke out, so then it ended up being an interception. But I think Taysom Hill actually started the game off pretty well, was executing the offense.
Yeah.
Just kind of
to the fumble.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Then it just kind of fell apart, and it was like, right. So, it's one of those things. I think Taysom Hill brings more to the more dynamicism to the table, but then Jameis Winston brings more upside in terms of his throwing talent because he's a guy that he could throw like 6 big time throws in a game and like open a thing up, but then again, he could also throw 6 turnover worthy throws in a game and end it for you.
Yes, I had him on my team. In fantasy, he threw 6 picks and then 6 interceptions and then 6 touchdowns the next week. It was just ridiculous.
Right. It can happen week to week, or it even can happen play to play. Like some boneheaded thing could happen on one play, and then he comes back and goes, "Well, where did this big time throw come from?" Right. So, Sean Payton probably wants to value securing the ball, and both these guys, so far what we've seen don't do that as well as what do you expect from them. And then I think you look at it from the Ravens defensive standpoint. We know it. They're always going to be really good on their defense. And they had a lot of their starters out there to start the game, which was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I did not expect them to see that. You had Marlon Humphrey out there.
Queen was out there.
Yeah, their guys were out there. They made some good plays. And I think we know what the type of player that Marlon Humphrey is. He's a stud. He's gonna be able to be shut down on his cornerback position. He can play him all over the field. So I think for them, it's going to be coming down to their pass rush and their front seven. And can these guys, get pressure off at the quarterback as, the secondary is really locking it down for them. And, I think in this game, it's just not enough to see it. Like, you had some good performances by Queen and Justin Matabuke out of the defensive tackle out of Texas A&M. He had a really good game at 90.5. So he had some flashes in there to see what they can do in the defense.
Yeah, definitely. We'll get back to them. We'll kind of foreshadow to see what the Ravens are going to do coming up here later on in the broadcast. But coming up, we are going to get back to the games. First of all, we'll go ahead and when we come back, we will actually get into one of our video vaults. 1987. This is something I didn't even remember, man. I didn't know this went down like this. But when you get back, we'll take a trip down memory lane, get into the video vault, and as well, we will actually name our player of the game from the Jags and the Browns preseason game. Come on back. We'll be right back with you. This Browns preview show on the Barbershop Network.
What they got was one of the strangest chapters in the 38-year history of the franchise, replacement football. For 3 wild weeks, a mixed bag of strangers represented Cleveland surprisingly well. In New England, they ran over the Patriots for a win. 7 days later against Houston, the replacement Browns could manage only a single touchdown, losing to the division-leading Oilers by 5 points. The next week, Gary Danielson rode to the rescue with a near-perfect performance against the Bengals. Sparked by 4 Danielson touchdown tosses, the offense exploded for over 400 yards. The commanding 34-0 shutout of Cincinnati marked the end of the strike, but not the effect of the replacement players, who had earned respect in a difficult situation with their hard play. Though their dream had ended, the players exited the NFL with heads held high.
Welcome back to the Browns preview show here on the Barbershop Network. I'm your host, G. Bush, and with my co-host, John Kosko, Pro Football Focus. Browns, they did their thing against Jacksonville. I thought they showed pretty well. Against the Giants, is this a game that we actually see some of the guys and some of the starters? Do we see some of the guys like Jadeveon Clowney and the defensive ends, maybe one or two to the running backs, or this Baker Mayfield play in this game? This game is at home in Cleveland. Guys are going to be kind of jacked up to see it. Plus, they only got 3 preseason games. So if you're not going to be, get an opportunity to see them next week, is this the week you see Baker Mayfield and some of the top-notch guys?
I think you're going to get a series or two from the starters, probably minus OBJ. And so I think you want to see them get the cobwebs out, just kind of get a feel for live game action. I mean, look over at Tampa Bay. Tom Brady played last week. I mean, if he can play, anybody can play in the preseason, right? So,
and he got sacked. No, it was that Blaine Gabbert that got sacked. I think Tom got sacked too. He was like, okay.
I don't remember if he got sacked. I know he had a throw. No, he did get sacked. He had a throw that he was getting hit on, and then he got sacked on his last play, and they were like, that's it. But he knew it was coming, hit the ground before he could get hurt. But really, I think look at him, right? Everybody wants to be like Tom Brady right now, win Super Bowls, win 7 of them or whatever. Maybe emulate him, right? So I think you're going to see the starters for the Browns play minus OBJ at least this series, just to kind of get a feel for a live game action. Plus, it's a first home game, right? So
right,
the fans are going to want to see that. I think Kevin Stefanski knows that, and there's obviously there's a risk. You're playing football, right? But there's not a massive risk that you're going to have some injuries and stuff like that, because I think it is what it is. If you're going to get hurt, you're going to get hurt. But I think you need to see those guys out there, and you're looking forward to that at home and putting a show on for the fans.
Yeah, to kind of throw a cherry on the top of that, I think everybody has a solid chance of playing except for Grant Delpit and OBJ. I think everybody else may play. You may get to see all those guys. And like you said, if it's good for Tom Brady, it's good for everybody. That's the thought process, right? I mean, these guys Browns are relatively a younger team. I think they'll be smart with it, and we'll see where that goes. On the other sideline, let's take a look about what the season outlook for 2021 for the New York Giants. We're looking at, on that side of the football, obviously Saquon Barkley, one of probably the best player, arguably, on their team, and one of the best backs in the league, is coming back from an injury. You have him being back. You have Daniel Jones. This year to me is a make or break year for Daniel Jones. Especially coming out of the draft when people were like, huh? You drafted him where? And he has some stuff. He has athleticism. I remember the first game he played, didn't he throw up like something crazy, like 3 touchdown runs on the ground? And he was a guy who the first couple of days of games played all right. But now I think the people are circling in the water. And I think the Giants have to have a good year this year, or they'll be moving along the same way they just did with Sam Darnold. What are your thoughts on the Giants moving forward?
So Daniel Jones has performed better than Sam Darnold has so far in his career. I think Daniel Jones last year, he was our 18th highest graded quarterback. Sam Darnold hasn't sniffed the top 20 in his time in the NFL so far. And I think Daniel Jones' mechanics are more cleaner than what they are for Sam Darnold. He's more athletic. He's got more of a dynamic package, I think, than Sam Darnold does. I think you're looking at more of like a prototypical guy that you do some designed runs with the guy. And it's not as if he graded bad last year. I think he's stuck in I don't think his ceiling is anything like a progression that we saw from like Josh Allen, where Josh Allen was an elite guy this year, and it came out of nowhere. That literally came out of nowhere because we knew that he had the cannon of an arm, but he had 2 seasons in the NFL where he was grading right around 59, 60 in terms of passing grade, and then he jumped up to a 90. I expect him to come back from that, but I don't expect Daniel Jones to do that either, mainly because we haven't seen it. So he could surprise. right? But he has a 74.4 passing grade last year, so everything's going to rest on him and whether or not he can take the next step in his third year in the NFL. Saquon Barkley, we're not going to see, obviously in this game, but he, for their aspect, they're expecting him to be back by week 3. And, he's going to be obviously a boost to that team because he's a stud. He's super fun to watch. I mean, who doesn't like watching Saquon Barkley?
It seems like I'm just thinking about it. Now, let's do a little comparison and contrast here. Now, Odell Beckham Jr., he's like, if the Browns were like, okay, we don't care, you just going to play, Odell could play. He could play next week. It wouldn't be like he's going to blow his knee out or something like that. He's physically able to play. Saquon Barkley tore his knee up earlier than Odell Beckham Jr. I want to say about a month or 4 weeks earlier than that. And I remember him saying, because I've torn both of my ACLs too. And I know that they kind of, if you have a lot of swelling or you have a lot of trauma to the knee, I remember seeing that they didn't even have his surgery until like December or something. It was late, and they were like, yeah, Saquon Barkley's just getting his surgery. I'm like, that don't look good.
Wow.
Week 3?
I didn't know that.
Week 3, man, that's kind of late. I would have been like, oh, well, maybe they're going to keep him out for the preseason. Any Giants fans that's watching this, let me know. You can put it in the comment section. What's going on? Are you kind of scared with the Saquon Barkley thing? In terms of the rest of their squad goes, do they have enough weapons? I mean, the NFC East is the NFC East. I think everything is up for grabs all the time over there. What do they have skill position wise and up front enough do you think they can make a wild card type move?
Yeah, I mean, I like their wide receiver room. I think Darius Slayton is a solid player there, and they got pieces, right? So they added John Ross, whose speed, we don't know what he can bring to the table. I think he's
injured every week
from him. Yeah, he's injured every week. I think if he can be healthy, he can add a dynamic element to your offense of the speed, right? But they signed Kenny Golladay this offseason. He's a stud as a receiver, but he was also injured last year. So if he can stay healthy, he's going to bring something to the table for them. And then Sterling Shepard is, he's a solid slot receiver there. And then Kadarius Toney is a rookie. I loved him coming out, and we'll see what he can do. So they've got skill there. It's unproven, and it's just a matter of, can Daniel Jones get it to them? And then you're looking at their offensive line. Can they protect Daniel Jones? And I think you look at their offensive line. It was not good last year. They drafted Andrew Thomas 4th overall last year, and he did not grade very well. He was a 62.4, struggled in pass protection, struggled in run blocking. Just not what you expect from your, the first offensive tackle picked in the draft. He was probably the worst of the top 4 guys that were picked that was considered there. So, Will Hernandez, their guard, not playing well yet. And Nick Gates, their center, not playing well. And so their offensive line is a mess right now, and they really need to come together.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a really quick break here. When we come back, we'll get right back to the AFC North. We'll do a little compare and contrast, and we'll talk about where John Kosko has guys finishing. I know it's a little early for this. I know it's a little early to give you predictions, but, the AFC North is pretty cut, dry, clear, in my opinion. So we'll come back and see what his predictions are. We'll compare to contrast AFC North teams. We'll start with the Cincinnati Bengals. Keep it locked. We're here on the Browns Preview Show on the Barbershop Network. Welcome back to the Browns Preview Show here on the Barbershop Network. John Kosko with me in the building. How you doing today? You good? You good?
Good.
Got
good.
your coffee?
Oh,
Got
yes.
your coffee?
Well, It's a fake coffee. It's just the mug and some
Yeah.
Right.
I wonder how many times people be faking that on the set. I know they be faking sometimes.
Put some bourbon in there.
Yeah. Come on, man. You got to, especially in the old days. Like when you watch what's his name, Mr. Draper. What's his name?
Yeah, Don Draper.
Mad Men. Don Draper.
Yeah.
So, man, you know, back then, all that stuff they was doing, you can literally go to jail for. Harassment.
Yeah.
You just randomly like, who has an alcohol table in your office? Like, come on, sit down. And people was driving drunk, smoking cigarettes in public buildings. Shout out to Mad Men. You can't get none of that off no more.
None of that.
None of that. It's an HR's worst nightmare. You did what? No. Yeah, you get fired quick. Now, I started with the Bengals because I'm giving you an out card here. Obviously, the Bengals, one of the bad teams in the league last year. But I always tell people, if you look at the skill positions for the Bengals and the skill positions for the Browns, they are very comparable. Very comparable if you take a look at the skill position with T. Higgins. You know, they just got Jamar Chase. You know, they still got Joe Mixon, Joe Burrow. I remember having you on. Don't get mad at us. You said when we came out, I said, listen, if Baker and Burrow was in the same draft, and Pro Football Focus had Baker Mayfield rated one of the best quarterbacks they've seen, who would you take? And you said, I might have to take Joe Burrow. This is pre-injury, but that just goes to show you how many people around the country and people who do it for a living feel about Joe Burrow's skill set.
Yeah, I mean, he's a stud. I think there's a reason why LSU won the national championship, and it's mainly because of him. And the fact that he played at such a high level, his single season grade for PFF was the highest that we had ever graded at that point. He just eclipsed Baker's single season grade of a 94.7. Joe Burrow put like 94.8, and then that only held for a year until Mac Jones did it last year of 95 something. So Joe Burrow, I think. You look at how he played the game. He deciphered defense. It was, obviously that offense was really creative, but at the same time, he was able to dissect defenses, throw the ball accurately, had enough arm strength and had enough moxie in the pocket to move around and make plays outside the pocket as well, within structure and outside of structure. And I think for him, if he can hone that in the NFL and be protected, he can be a stud in this league. He can be a top 5 quarterback for sure in the NFL on a consistent basis, and that would make the Cincinnati Bengals a contender every single year. So, that would be talking about Baker versus, Burrow, that would be a really good battle for years to come in the AFC North.
What do you make of this thing where there's so many people talking about Joe Burrow now? I've heard Mo Egger down in Cincinnati who covers the team, a lot of beat reporters, a lot of national people saying that Joe Burrow doesn't look like the same guy. Now, that could be hyperbole, or that could be, if more than one person say it. Now, there is a certain thing called an echo chamber around here. People just repeat what they hear. And I've torn my ACL, and I'm not a skilled position guy, so I'm not changing directions, have to plant my lead foot and then trust that somebody's not going to fall into it. What are your thoughts about bringing Joe back? And if there's a certain thing as bringing him back too soon. And where do you stand on a quarterback being ruined? This term ruined, right? Where you're hurt, you get hit a lot, you're sacked a lot, you're squeamish in the pocket, you don't have any presence anymore. I know I threw a bunch out. I asked you like a 6-part question, but go ahead and dissect that.
Yeah, so with his injury, all the beat reporters out of Cincinnati, they're talking about how he doesn't look the same. Well, he's 8 months out from his surgery, so like, he's not going to be 100% right now. It's just, you're talking about ACL surgeries being 12 to 18 months, depending on how the severity of it, how much damage there was beyond just the ACL, and then just sometimes it doesn't heal the way you'd expect it to heal. So, I think you've seen some players come back from those things way faster than you'd expect. You're talking about even OBJ, who looks like 100% right now, and he's had an ACL surgery as well. Saquon Barkley, he's not ready to go, right? So it kind of just depends on the guy. Quarterback position's a little bit different. So for him, you got to think about this long term, because he is your franchise quarterback. and you want to protect that franchise quarterback. You don't want to put him out there too early where the knee is not stable enough and he then re-injures it, or he doesn't throw with proper mechanics and he's always favoring it and doesn't have the same accuracy, the arm strength, and all that stuff. So really, you want to make sure that you do this right for the long term, because I don't think you're not expecting Super Bowl for the Cincinnati Bengals this year. So you want to put him out there when he's ready and not before he's ready, because you don't want to. I think there is a fact of like ruining a quarterback. You can ruin a quarterback and by getting hit too much or whatnot. Look at David Carr out of Houston. He was sacked a bazillion amount of times in his career, and it may have affected him. You look at Tim Couch for the Cleveland Browns. He was sacked a whole bunch, and I think he was super talented. He was a guy that maybe if he hadn't got hurt, and he could have been something, right? So you want to be careful with this stuff, and I think about it long term, especially at that position. Give him time.
All right, let's keep it moving. Let's go to another team. But before we get there, obviously you probably picked the Bengals to come in last place in the division. No knock. And see, here's the thing. I'm not saying there's a lot. I got friends that are Bengals people. I work with somebody at a radio station who's a Bengals fan. The Bengals, for the most part, they knew what they were up against when Joe Burrow got hurt. When your quarterback gets hurt, you're not going to rush him. You're not going to throw the ball 100 million times during the season. So, I mean, and they still need offensive line help. So what do you think the Bengals go in 2021?
I think they contend for a 500 record, right? And I think this is kind of points to the strength of the AFC North. And I got to look at more specific at their record or their schedule. But last year I felt like they were on track to be a contender for that 7th wild card spot based on how they were playing before Joe Burrow got hurt, based on how the schedule was looking like. I think he's a guy that can get you to that 7-8 win mark. But again, I think in the AFC North, that's going to be 4th best.
Let's move on a little bit, and let's get to, obviously, we've already covered the Cleveland Browns. We're not going to do that at this juncture. Let's talk to you about the other two teams. Let's get to the Pittsburgh Steelers. We talked about it a little bit. You have Mason Rudolph, you got Dwayne Haskins, obviously you got Big Ben. He's restructured his deal, he's coming back. Your thoughts on this? Some people have the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think there's two different groups of factions. One of them believes that the Pittsburgh Steelers, their whole demise has been greatly overtold. They believe up and down that the Pittsburgh Steelers are still an 11 to 12 win team, and it's just about them getting back to their roots, so to speak. There's another group of people who have already poured dirt on their graves. It's done. They've already chalked it up as the Steelers are finished. They don't have the same type of pass rush. They ain't got the same type of moxie. They can't just do what they want. They can't bully people anymore. And then you got me. I just don't think that the Steelers are ready to die. I just don't. I don't know if their offensive line completely falls apart. Maybe they win 5 or 6 games, but I see them 8-9 wins. I mean, they had Duck Dynasty. Duck Hodges was out here and they had 8 or 9 wins. Mason Rudolph had 8. Come on, I can't believe that they're gonna somehow just fall apart. What do you say?
I'm in agreement with you. They're the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're a team that's always very competitive, no matter who their quarterback is, because they're well coached. They can develop their talent that they bring in. So you even talk about guys that are drafted in the 3rd to 5th round that maybe these aren't household names, and then all of a sudden it's like, man, this guy's a quality player for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they do a really good job of drafting and developing their guys, and then they also have talent. They still have talent on this team, right? So the defense is always going to be very good and hard out. That's a scheme that just causes fits for the opposing quarterback. It really doesn't even matter who's out there in the secondary. They have solid players on that defense, but that pressure gets to the quarterbacks and it really confuses quarterbacks. So, and that's what gets teams, and they have what's called a double call defense. So they have 2 different calls that they call in the huddle, and based on what the offense formation is, they're playing one of the 2 calls, and it's always game plan extremely well based on what that team does. So they always are taking away the strong plays that the offense plays. So this is a team that they're not going to be easy out. My neighbor, who's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, he thinks that they're going to go like 5-12 or something like that. But it's like, listen, like I know that you think that because you're super down on Big Ben. It's like they still are the Pittsburgh Steelers, though.
They still got a crazy receiver. Y'all got to understand. Once again, I know you people believe that you don't need receivers and that the receivers are prima donnas, and the Steelers still have 3 of the best receivers in the AFC, and they got guys that can do all different things. They got guys that could go up top. By the way, I'm not going to call you Mapletron. That is one of the wackest names of all time. Mapletron?
What the heck is that? I hadn't heard that.
I'm not going to call you. I'm going to call you what your mother called you. I'm going to call you by your government. They ain't call you no Mapletron. What does that mean? I mean, you know, Deontay Thomas, I mean, he's a monster. I like him. I like him better than Juju Smith-Schuster.
If he can hold on to the ball, that offense runs through him. So last year, that offense, when he was playing well, that offense was clicking. It's when he drops passes, that offense stagnates. I think it was the Buffalo Bills game last year when he dropped a pass early and they pulled him. And that offense stopped running. And then they put him back into the fourth quarter, and it started to pick up again. But they really need him out in the field. He is the probably one. If he could catch the ball, I could see him being a top 10 wide receiver this year.
Easy,
great and everything. He is a stud. I loved him coming out in college.
Easy.
And he can be that number one type of guy, even though he's 5'10", 183, but he gets open. He has moxie. He knows how to run routes. He knows just what to do at that wide receiver position. He just has to concentrate to catch the football.
And when they really slow down is when he's dropping a rock and then Eric Ebron's dropping a rock. Like I've seen Eric Ebron get hit in the mouth, and I'm like, bro, and it's been times against people that, I'm like, wow, you're wide open. All you got to do is catch that and move. Yeah, they got receivers. They got receivers out there. I'm with you. In terms of what the grade is and where they come in, where do you got the Steelers coming in the division as far as their place, and how many games do you think they can win as far as their ceiling?
Kind of really depends on how Ben Roethlisberger in that quarterback position plays, right? I think their defense and their skill positions automatically probably gets them to 8 wins, and then it's a matter of how Ben Roethlisberger plays. If he can play, even if he plays at the level last year, they're probably a 10-win team, and a 10-win team probably gets you into that 7th wild card position. So I think you're talking about between an 8 and 10-win team, and they're not gonna be a team that sets the world on fire with 11 straight wins to open the season or anything like that. They have a really tough schedule actually to start the season. You might actually see them start off the season like 1-4 or something like that. But I think they're gonna rally and win. Get close to that 7th wildcard spot.
To me, like I always said, listen, you're not gonna. To me, I would have them in 3rd, but that 3rd has it's a window to it. It's the AFC North. You can get 3 teams, in terms of, especially that they added another game. I still don't ever chalk the Steelers up for 2 wins. Like the Browns haven't gotten to the point where they can chalk them up for a lot of people. The Browns, I think, are way more talented. But I think the Steelers are the Steelers, and until you can put dirt on them, you got to account for them somewhere.
I mean, they had a legitimate win in the playoffs, right? But the Week 17 win, is that really legitimate? So you kind of almost look at it as a split, right? So
Moving along, let's get to the other team, and I've been putting those guys at the same level as the Cleveland Browns, and I think one of the teams is the Baltimore Ravens. It just seems like, in order for the Cleveland Browns to get where they need to go, it's only right that you beat the old Browns. It's only right that you got to go through them. And even when the Cleveland Browns look like they're outplaying them, or they should be able to beat the Ravens have always given the Browns fits. When you look at it, the offense. Let's go to the offense and look at Lamar Jackson. Do you think he regressed a little bit in terms of his progression as far as throwing the ball and him being very dynamic? Or do you think it's just the fact that the league and some of the people caught up to him a little bit? They understand how to stop him a little better. They're giving him different looks. Or do you think he kind of took a step back?
So he's never been an accurate passer, even in his MVP season. What it was for them in his MVP season was the scheme was working extremely well. And I think you get an off season for defensive coordinators to, hey, what is it that they're doing? They catch up to that, and then Lamar Jackson needs to show growth and to stay ahead of the league. He wasn't able to do that, so they were able to take away the middle of the field, which was, their play action game was, they're one of the best play action teams in the NFL. They were able to take away that middle of the field. Mark Andrews wasn't quite as dynamic, and then their wide receiver position, it just wasn't as good as well. So if guys aren't getting open, you really need Lamar Jackson to be able to do it with his legs or throw accurate passes against tight coverage, and he's not an accurate thrower. So I think he has a good feel for the game, right? Like I think that's clear and obvious, and he's obviously dynamic with his legs, but he does need to progress as a passer. And I don't know if he regressed so much as a passer. His grade definitely took a hit as a passer, but I just don't think. I think it was more the defense has caught up to him, and he didn't improve from his MVP season, if that makes any sense, even though he played worse in his MVP season.
Yeah. You can play on paper very well, but the effectiveness is different. In his MVP season, he was running around wide open. It was either Lamar Jackson was keeping the ball and nobody was touching him, or he was throwing the ball to wide open tight ends. And you'd be like, how many fullbacks and tight ends is open? All of them?
Think about the game against the Browns on what is it? Was it Monday Night Football that went on to a barn burner, like 45-20, 42 right, or whatever it was? Like the reason why that they were able to win that game is because you had Bust in the secondary. So he came back from his hiatus in the locker room, whatever he did in the locker room, right?
I don't know.
Who knows what he did?
Willis Reed. He Willis Reed us. Whatever happened, he came back and he was ready to go.
Was it Vince Carter? Or it was the one. I think it was the reference he made was Vince Carter, right? But
yeah,
I didn't do no Vince Carter or whatever. But he came back out there on fourth down and threw like a wide open guy over across the middle because I think it was Terrence Mitchell had his eyes in the backfield for no reason at all. So that's the thing. So he can make those types of plays, but if you're disciplined in your secondary, it makes it a lot more difficult to be able to make those plays. Then you're having to rely on your legs and stuff like that. But if you with an improved defense with good eye discipline and stuff, think about the Patriots, they're able to stop him.
Yeah, I think there's teams. I'll be honest with you. There's teams out there of what they do, and I've been watching some different stuff as far as innovation and different things with defense. If you go look at what the Rams do, right? They put guys in four eyes, right? And then they tell their nose tackle, you're going to two-gap this thing, right? And when you put your defensive ends in three-man fronts in four eyes, it makes it really hard to double-team people and go to the next level and get linebackers. It shuts down the RPO game because you're not reading off the same person now. Now, if you got a defender that they're reading on that play, he's in pass. If he's in pass coverage, it's not the same look. There's not everything that's open. I thought the Rams were really innovative with that. College teams have been running that four-eye stuff for a long time. Yeah. It just takes a little bit of time for the team. Yeah. So there's things you can do. And then plus you just need the athletes to corral them. I think the Browns do, by all accounts, have those athletes now, especially with Clowney. And even if you get Takk McKinley that comes in who's really athletic, Myles Garrett, some of those guys, I think they can do that, and they're gonna. And it's can you stop the running game to a point, and get them off of the field, or in obvious passing downs where he has to go up and down the field throwing the ball, and I don't think he can do that consistently. Can he do it some? Sure, but consistently, I take my chances with him throwing rather than running.
Yeah, if you can make him a pocket passer and keep him in the pocket. So when you rush Lamar Jackson, you have to contain rush. You can't go after him thinking, I'm going to get a sack, because he's too athletic and too good. He's going to get away from that. And you saw that continuously last year when he was playing against the Browns, that he was just able to slip those tackles and stuff. But if you can keep him in the pocket, make him that pocket passer, that's how you can beat this team. And then from the run game standpoint, talking about most teams, though, we at PFF talk about how the run game doesn't matter. Well, the run game matters in a sense, but for the Ravens, it's very important. And it's very important that you have to stop that run game. And the way you stop that run game is have good run defenders, for one, But the Browns are going to be much improved in that regard. Andrew Billings is back at the defensive tackle position. Jadeveon Clowney's one of the best at run defenders at the edge position. So those two guys in general are going to improve that defensive line. And like you were talking about, if you can get that 4-eye, that tight front that college teams have been doing for forever, if you can two-gap those guys up front, it frees up your linebackers and your secondary to be able to go and shoot those lanes and make those plays. Because one of the things that, another study that we've done at PFF is the nose tackle position is actually really important to the pass game, because it forces a team, it allows a team to have multiple secondary players out there. So you don't have to be in a base defense to stop the run. You can have a guy think about it, like Vince Wilfork. Vince Wilfork was one of the best run defenders at the nose tackle position for a decade, right? Same with Haloti Ngata. That's one of the reasons why those defenses have been so great over the years, because they have those guys that can stop the run up front. It allows you to have 5 defensive backs, 6 defensive backs to be able to stop the pass and stop the run. So if the Browns can do that with Andrew Billings and now Jadeveon Clowney being a better run defender, I mean, it really is going to put a lot more speed out in the field to be able to stop Lamar Jackson.
All right, so let's get to the prediction for the Baltimore Ravens. If you look at the situation, they have Lamar Jackson. The question is, in this division, did the Browns accumulate enough talent, or do they have enough people, or the progression of Baker Mayfield? Is his progression going to put them over the hump in terms of saying the Browns are the best team in this division? Or do you still say the Baltimore Ravens, given what they do defensively, given the fact that you still have Lamar Jackson, and given the fact that, Baltimore seems to be the team that is a thorn in the Browns' side, do you still give the Baltimore Ravens the edge so far until you see more?
I think that the Browns have made that gap. I think they've made up that gap with Baker Mayfield, his progression. So you think about from a quarterback position, right? So quarterback is the most important position out on the football field. That drives wins, essentially, or losses, whatever it is. Baker Mayfield played as the second best quarterback in the NFL from week 7 on through the playoffs. If he can maintain that type of level, which that's 12 games, that's not like a small sample size. It's a relatively small sample size of 12 games, but it's almost a full season of him playing at the Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes type level in terms of executing the offense and making the throws. If he can continue to do that with the improvements that the Browns have made on defense, I think the Browns can take this division and get the Baltimore Ravens off of it. I think the Ravens, they kind of regressed a little bit on their offensive line. They're not going to be as good there, and that wide receiver group, I don't see the improvement that you want to see from that. Obviously, they drafted Rashad Bateman, who I loved coming out of Minnesota. But he's a guy that maybe he makes a difference for him, because I do like him as a receiver. But their offensive line did take a step back, and I think that their defense needs, you need to see it for them. They're always going to be good on defense, but are they going to be that top 5 type unit that you expect always from the Baltimore Ravens? That front 7 is not as good as it has been in the past. So I think the Browns have closed that gap and have surpassed them. It obviously depends on Baker Mayfield playing like he did in the second half of last year.
All right, so what we'll do, we'll throw a bow on the Jacksonville week and look forward to the Giants week. In terms of your game balls, player of the game, for me, I got JOK. I thought this was an easy one. I thought he, 7-8 tackles, couple solos, showed his range, got a sack. I thought he did his thing. I thought he moved around and he showed that he can play with the big boys, and he showed what versatility he has. So I really think this is no brainer when in terms of this. I got JOK in terms of the player of the game. Who do you thought is eligible for a game ball in your opinion?
I'm going to go with Kyle Lauletta. He's second highest graded quarterback of the week 1 of preseason of all the quarterbacks, and that's an impressive feat. And I think for the Browns, he threw 2 touchdowns, had almost 8 yards per pass attempt, had a couple of big time throws in there. Didn't put the ball in harm's way. He was unfortunate with a couple of drops, but I think he played well. He executed the offense and was efficient, and had a couple of scoring drives, and I think that's what won them the game.
Listen, let's move forward a little bit to the game against the Giants. What position group are you looking forward to seeing? What position group do you want to see the most from? For me, I want to see it in the trenches. I really want to see the guys. I want to see all our guys back out there moving around, and solidifying the fact that they are the best offensive linemen in the game. I want to see if Baker can stay clean, and I want to see some nice holes for Kareem Hunt, Chubb, or Dearness Johnson. I'm looking in the trenches. Who do you got? What position group or what person do you want to see moving forward in the game against the Giants?
Yeah, I was going to say the offensive line too, but I'm going to go with the secondary because this is pretty much a mostly brand new secondary for the Browns. Denzel Ward is back, but you're talking about, Ronnie Harrison and John Johnson, and now Grant Delpit's not going to play, but you got Troy Hill and a lot of new pieces out there that I just want to see how they gel together. What type of, does Joe Woods throw a few more wrinkles in there than what he did last year? Now that he actually has the talent that he can play with. So secondary is kind of going to be not even just if they play well, but the scheme and how they're playing well together in terms of a unit.
Yeah, so those are two guys. There's a lot of new faces to look. John Johnson the third is there. A lot of new faces in the secondary. Troy Hill is in that secondary. Greedy Williams might get an opportunity to get some more extended playing time. And I'm definitely excited to watch those guys come up and be at home and get excited for that. All right, so let's get to your predictions of the game. Obviously, it's the preseason game. Predictions. I had the Browns losing last week, so. But I think they came out and played.
I think I was pretty close with my prediction, right?
You might have been dead on. It was 23 to like 14 or something. You said you had somewhere around there. Rewind the tape. Somebody put it in the comment section. This week, I'm gonna go with. I'm actually gonna say the Browns will win this game. I think Case Keenum will play a lot more, especially in the second half. I think the Browns. They might put some points up. I think the Browns might get 31 points, 31 to 10 or somewhere around there. Interested in seeing what they'll do. What's your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I think the Browns are going to win this one. You look at the game, how the Giants played, like they did not look good. They looked, granted they didn't have Daniel Jones playing out there, but man, their backups looked awful. So I think the Browns didn't. So they looked really good. So I think the Browns are going to win this like 28-31, something like that to, I don't know, 15, 17, something like that.
We'll take that. We'll take them points, man. As always, make sure you guys check out. We will be with you, or I will be back with you right after the game. Sunday, I think the game is at 8 o'clock. I will be on live. We'll come in 30, 45 minutes, give you a quick recap. Don't forget, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel so you can get all of the notifications. This show will be out every single Wednesday. Thanks for all the people who really supported. The first show was a really big success. We'll be here every single Wednesday throughout the season. As always, it's G. Bush in for John Kosko, and we posted up, and this is the Browns Preview Show on the Barbershop Network.